Hello guys, and welcome to episode 8 of Mediocre Military Modeling. And today we are looking at yet another Tamiya kit. This is the M151A2, also known as the MUTT. It is basically a Jeep with a tow missile launcher on the back of it. Now, sticking a tow wire-guided missile launcher on the back of a Jeep gave lighter, more mobile formations or units a real punch against armor enemies. There are a lot of advantages to this. It's fairly cheap, it's pretty easy to train personnel, probably already knew how to drive a vehicle like a Jeep, so you really just have to train them on the use of the tow launcher on the back. So cheap, easy to train people on, pretty light and mobile. Of course, the one big downside of this is the vulnerability. I mean, it's basically just a Jeep. So pretty easy to take out by the enemy, even with, infantry with rifles or automatic weapons. So I kind of picked up this kit on a whim. I was ordering paints online, and I needed to justify, the shipping. So I grabbed this kit. I thought it would make a fun, easy build, and it did. This isn't too complicated of a kit. I think I paid like $12 for it. So pretty cheap and inexpensive. Now, there's two versions in the box. You can make the U.S. Army version or the Marines version. I picked the Marines version mostly because I wanted to try out this camouflage scheme. This is MERDC, M-E-R-D-C. Don't ask me what it stands for, but when I think of camouflage, this is the pattern I think of. There were different kinds of MERDC camouflage depending on the terrain. There was Arctic, desert. This scheme here I'm using right now is tropical. The Marines, I figured they'd be maybe operating in the South Pacific or something like that. So I gave it the tropical theme. And it was used a lot in Europe. It ended up being phased out. It was replaced mostly in the US by that really boring desert camo for Desert Storm and Desert Shield. That very boring monochromatic sand color. That I personally find very boring. But it was also replaced in Europe by the tricolor NATO pattern. I've heard it was because they, well, at the time the Soviets or the Russians in the 90s, they were afraid they'd be able to identify certain units by the camo. They'd be able to tell, oh, that's a US unit. I don't know. I don't know how effective this camouflage was, but I don't know. I really like it. It's just This was the camouflage pattern I saw growing up in the 80s and early 90s. So when I think of the military, this is immediately the camo pattern that kind of comes to my mind. So this kit, again, like I said earlier, it wasn't too hard to put together. I mean, because it's smaller pieces, I guess it would be something a little more complicated than, say, the Walker Bulldog. But I would still say a beginner, maybe that's had one or two models under the belt, would probably have not much of a hard time handling this one. And I hand painted this whole thing. As you can see here, that's the there's the MERDC tropical pattern. I believe it's made up of 4 different colors there. You can easily find the different patterns online. There's a lot of information about this type of camo. The difference between the Marines and the Army version, they're very different. The Marines have this snorkel on there, and also some of the the hooks, like these ones on the end, they tell you not to put on if you're doing the Army one. If we look at the box here, again, the camo scheme they want you to use is, I believe it's also MERDC, or however you would say that acronym, but it's a different scheme. You can see there's a lot more of that sand or tan color. But like I said, I thought the tropical one was a little more iconic. It's one I like a little bit more, and I figured it would go well with the Marines. Other than that, not a whole lot of color in this. Khaki seats, the missile launcher and the missile tubes are olive drab. So there's a little bit of red back there and some orange on the front there. Overall, I think this turned out okay. I think the only big mistake, and you probably couldn't see it at a glance, is the tubes here is the tubes here. You can see this one, they're not like perfectly symmetrical. I think it was because when I put it all together and I put this on, this one was hitting the seat. So it's up ever so slightly more than the one next to it. It's not super obvious, but it is there. I guess in real life that could, like, you know, maybe they didn't set them in the little holder perfectly or something. So it's not like out of the question, but it is a little bit of a mistake. I know it's there. It bothers me. But other than that, that's really the only, you know, big mix-up or mess-up. You know, other than the fairly shoddy. I mean, I'm impressed I was able to pull off the camo pattern, but I mean, compared to others I've seen, I mean, it's not really. It is an amateurish job, but you know, for me, it's pretty decent. So I guess I'm kind of proud of it. But anyways, I don't think it would win any modeling contest, but I'm kind of proud of it. So as for the kit itself, it's good. I want to give it 3 stars, especially because it's a good value. I mean, it's cheap, $12 to give yourself maybe like a weekend putting this thing together and painting it. $12 is pretty good value, but I don't know. There's not a whole lot. Maybe it's just me. I mean, it's a Jeep. It doesn't excite me too much. The launcher is pretty cool, but yeah, I guess I'll give it 3 stars just because it's a great value. It is a really good value. Now my job of it. All right, so as we all know, or maybe don't know, I give myself 3 ratings on this channel. I give it a artistically inclined 5th grader could do better, that good old college try, and then my best rating is certified mediocre. And like I said, the only issue, I think, the only thing I really messed up was the launcher tubes. And it's really not that big. You can't even really tell at a glance. I mean, my paint job, it's adequate. I don't really see too many messes. Like, the window there, it's a little, there's like a smudge or whatever. That's a little messed up. I really didn't do much of any weathering or chipping or anything. That's usual for my models, but this one, I'm gonna give it certified mediocre, but just barely, Like any one more thing, and I think I would have gave it that good old college try, but it barely reaches my personal highest standard here. So I mean, I like it. I like looking at it. I like the camo pattern, but there's just something, I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know. But we'll give it a certified mediocre for the M151A2 with the tow missile launcher system. So thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.